So everyone can recall that there was a company called Figma. It was a little startup back in the day. Then back in 2022, Adobe wanted to buy for $20 billion with a $1 billion breakup fee. And then over the next year, the deal was stalled and then never got done. So Figma walked away with $1 billion. Adobe walked away with a bruised face. And basically people have pointed a finger at that era of the FTC as being too punitive towards mergers and acquisitions. And today the counterpoint is that Figma has gone public. It priced at around $20 billion in its IPO and then immediately shot higher. It was $50 billion at the peak. And so Lina Khan came, as you can see on your screen, and said, this was a great reminder that letting startups grow into independently successful businesses rather than be bought up by existing giants can generate enormous values. She calls the Figma IPO and its resulting pop a win for employees, investors, innovation, and the public. And then Jason, there's this guy named Jason who didn't agree, shockingly enough. Talk me through this.
Well, I really think that her philosophy of being able to predict future competition and then putting her thumb on the scale of different transactions is not how business should be run. It should be up to the leaders of these businesses, their employees, their investors, to make these decisions as to what's right for them. So we can sit here and do a revisionist history. Okay, this thing had a big pop. Of course, check with me in 2 years, because this pop, I think, in a lot of these recent IPO pops, just my signaling is, it could be a situation where they're trading at the same price 3 years from now. And we have seen some companies with that, where they just came out too hot and they had to grow back into that valuation. She believes that a company that charges $10 or $20 a month for their product being bought by another company that charges $15 or $20 a month for their product are in some way going to cause there to be less competition in 10 years or 20 years. It is the most farcical, ridiculous argument ever. This is niche software in the age of vibe coding and an acceleration and SaaS being absolutely challenged by these new technologies. And this happens every single time the government intervenes, which is the market takes care of it. There are 1,000 startup teams that could replicate any piece of Adobe or Figma software in less than a year and create a viable coexister and eventual competitor, and they could do that for under $10 million. People don't choose to do that in some cases because the products that are out there are so cheap. They're so affordable that you would be tilting at a windmill, which is to say the goal of consumers getting more for less has been achieved so greatly by these companies that to go and invest in a competitor, sometimes this doesn't make sense. Gmail being free is a really hard price for the industry to compete with. The browsers being free is an incredibly hard price. That's where the software eventually winds up. A gigabyte, a terabyte, just massive amounts of free storage for photos.
Yeah.
We have gotten to the point where the market has made everything free and cheap for consumers, with the exception of the industries where our government is running them and over-regulating them: housing, healthcare, and education. If we really want to point the gun of regulation somewhere, for the love of God, crack the monopolies that these colleges have with accreditation, crack the monopoly on healthcare and insurance and pharma, and crack the crazy regulations and these companies buying tons of homes and on housing. That's where we need it. You don't need it in our industry. The fact that we have a race to figure out how cheaply we can move people and services around, that's at $1.50 a mile, $2 a mile, and going down to $1 and then going down to 50 cents tells you everything you need to know.